Chapter 6. Grandpa. The portal dissolved behind Gunnar with the soft hum of collapsing energy, and he was home. The wolf den, his workshop, his fortress, his corner of earth that had somehow become command center for an organization that shouldn't exist, greeted him with familiar sounds: the low hum of computers processing data, the distant clang of someone working metal in the fabrication area, voices discussing tactics in the common room, and immediately, urgently, the click of massive claws on concrete. Alpha hit him like a freight train, not attacking, the dire wolf would never, but the impact of 200 pounds of muscle and desperation nearly knocked Gunnar back through the portal he'd just exited. Alpha's massive head pressed against his chest, whining, the sound carrying a frequency of distress that Gunnar felt more than heard. "Whoa, easy," Gunnar said, his hands automatically going to Alpha's ruff, feeling the tension vibrating through every muscle. "I'm here." "What's—" "Oh, thank God." Desera emerged from the command center, tablet in hand, her usually composed expression frayed around the edges. She looked like she hadn't slept in the 3 days Gunnar had been gone, which, knowing her dedication, she probably hadn't. "Do something with your wolf," she said without preamble. "Please, he's driving me absolutely crazy." Alpha pulled away from Gunnar just long enough to huff at Desera, not quite a growl, but close, then returned his attention to his human, golden eyes boring into Gunnar's with unmistakable urgency. "What's he been doing?" Gunnar asked, though he was already reaching through the bond, trying to understand what had Alpha so agitated. "What hasn't he been doing?" Desera replied, gesturing with her tablet. "He's been pacing the halls constantly. Won't settle, won't eat properly. Keeps going to the Merkdust gate. And I mean constantly, Gunnar. Every few hours he's there, whining, scratching at it, trying to get through. We've had to post someone there just to keep him from damaging the equipment." Alpha whined again, louder this time, and nudged Gunnar toward the far corridor, toward where the Merkdust gate stood. "He's been like this for 2 days?" Gunnar asked, his tactical mind already running through possibilities. Threat assessment. What could make Alpha this desperate to get to Merkdust? 2 days of escalating behavior, Desera confirmed. "At first we thought it was just missing you. Then we thought maybe he sensed a threat we weren't detecting. Ashley ran a full security sweep of Merkdust. Nothing. No threats, no anomalies, nothing that would explain why your wolf is acting like the world is ending." Gunnar closed his eyes, focusing on the bond. Before, when he'd been in Alfheim, the connection had been present but muted, like hearing music through thick walls. Now, standing in the same realm as Alpha, the bond clarified into something he could actually read, and what he felt made his eyes snap open. Not fear, not the sharp-edged alertness that came with sensing threats. This was something else entirely. Protectiveness, concern, a driving need to be somewhere else, with someone else. The emotional signature was so clear now that Gunnar wondered how he'd missed it before. "It's Beta," he said aloud. Desera blinked. "What?" "Something's wrong with Beta." Gunnar was already moving, Alpha at his side, both of them heading for the communications array. "Or something's happening with Beta. That's what he's been trying to tell us." "But Ashley said—" "I don't care what Ashley said," Gunnar interrupted, already pulling up the secure channel to Merkdust. "She might not know. Or Beta might not have told her. Alpha knows. He can feel it." The comm screen flickered to life, and after a moment, Ashley's face appeared. She looked tired, the kind of tired that came from running operations with limited resources in a newly established base. But when she saw Gunnar's expression and Alpha's massive head pushing into frame beside him, her tired look shifted to something else. Guilt. "Alpha," she said, and that alone told Gunnar something was wrong. Ashley never called him Alpha unless she was being formal or defensive. "What's going on with Beta?" Gunnar asked without preamble. Ashley's expression flickered. "Beta's fine. She's—" "Ashley," Gunnar's voice carried command weight now. "Alpha has been trying to claw through the Merkdust gate for 2 days. I can feel through the bond that something is happening with Beta. What aren't you telling me? Ashley was quiet for a long moment. Then she sighed, and something that might have been a smile touched her lips despite the situation. I should have told you earlier, she said. I'm sorry. I wasn't sure how to... I mean, it's not exactly a situation we have protocols for, and with everything happening with the child hunt and the diplomatic stuff, I thought maybe it could wait until you were back, but clearly Alpha had other ideas and... Ashley? Gunnar interrupted her rambling. What's going on? She took a breath, met his eyes through the screen. Congratulations, Grandpa, she said. Beta's pregnant. Again. The words hit Gunnar like a physical blow. He actually took a step back, his hand automatically going to the edge of the console for support. She's... what? Pregnant, Ashley repeated, and now she was definitely smiling despite trying to maintain professional composure. Eli confirmed it a few days ago when Beta started acting off. She's carrying again. Second litter. Gunnar's mind immediately went to Omega, Beta's first pup, now a juvenile wolf being raised and trained by Clara. Strong, smart, already showing signs of the intelligence that came from being born to bonded wolves. And now there would be more. How long have you known? He asked. 2 days, Ashley admitted. Eli was the one who figured it out. Beta was moving differently, eating more, getting protective of her space. She examined her and confirmed it. We wanted to tell you right away, but you were in Alfheim for Eliana's ceremony, and I didn't want to interrupt something that important with, hey, your wolves are having puppies again. Alpha made a sound, half whine, half huff, that clearly communicated his opinion of that decision. He knew, Gunnar said, glancing at the massive dire wolf beside him. Didn't you? You knew before any of us did. Alpha's response was to push his head under Gunnar's hand, demanding attention, demanding acknowledgement, demanding they go to Murkdusk right now. Is she okay? Gunnar asked, refocusing on Ashley. Really okay? No complications? She's fine, Ashley assured him. Healthy, strong, letting the pack fuss over her. She's been through this before with Omega, so she knows what to expect, though I think having Alpha stuck on the other side of a gate has been stressing her out. How far along is she? Gunnar asked. When is she due? That's the thing, Ashley said. Eli could confirm the pregnancy, but figuring out exact timeline isn't her specialty. She works with magical creatures, not pregnancy timelines for timberwolves. We need someone with actual medical training to do a proper examination and give us a timeline. Which is why I'm bringing Jewel, Gunnar said, already turning toward the corridor. She can figure out how far along Beta is and what we need to prepare. Good, Ashley replied, because honestly, we're kind of flying blind here. Beta's calm about it. She's been through this before, but the rest of us want to make sure we're ready for whatever comes. We'll be there in 5 minutes, Gunnar said. He closed the connection and turned to Desera, who had been standing behind him this whole time, her expression caught somewhere between amusement and disbelief. Your wolf got Beta pregnant again, she said, and now you're going to be a grandfather to more wolves. Plural. Apparently, Gunnar replied. You know this is completely insane, right? Desera said. Like, objectively, this is the weirdest thing we've dealt with, and we've dealt with demon kings and void warlocks. All of the above, Gunnar said. He was already moving toward the medical bay. Hold down operations here. I'm taking Alpha to Murkdusk. Jewel 2. Beta needs a proper examination, and I want to know exactly what timeline we're working with. Jewel's in the medical bay, Desera called after him. Want me to brief her? No time, Gunnar said. I'll get her on the way. Alpha was already moving, practically vibrating with urgency now that they were actually doing something. He led the way down the corridor toward the medical bay, his massive form radiating impatience. Gunnar caught up with him, his own mind trying to process. Beta, pregnant again, which meant more pups, more wolves bonded to Alpha who was bonded to him. And these would be hybrids. Alpha was the last dire wolf. Beta was Timberwolf. Their pups would carry both bloodlines. That was significant. More significant than most people would understand. He reached the medical bay and pushed through the door without knocking. Jewel looked up from where she'd been restocking supplies, her professional calm only slightly ruffled by the sudden entrance. "Alpha," she said. "Back from Alfheim already? How did—" "Beta's pregnant," Gunnar interrupted. "Second litter. Eli confirmed it, but we need you to figure out how far along she is and what the timeline looks like." Jewel blinked once. Then her professional mask snapped into place, and she was already moving toward the cabinet where she kept her field medical supplies. "Pregnant," she repeated, pulling out her kit. "Again, with more pups." "Yes. And you want me to examine a pregnant timber wolf," she continued, pulling out supplies, "to determine gestational age and projected delivery date." "You're the best medic I have," Gunnar said, "and the most adaptable. Figure it out." "Flattery and impossible tasks," Jewel muttered, but she was already packing additional supplies, monitoring equipment, medications, everything she might need. "Any specific concerns I should know about?" "Eli says she's healthy. But I want our own assessment, and I need to know exactly how far along she is and when to expect the birth. Beta's been through this before with Omega, so she knows what to expect, but I want to make sure we're prepared." "And now there will be more," Jewel said, hefting her kit. "Hybrid pups. Dire wolf and timber wolf. That's actually kind of extraordinary. From a biological standpoint, Alpha's the last dire wolf, right?" "Right." "So these pups will carry that bloodline forward," Jewel said thoughtfully. "Mixed with timber wolf genetics. That's significant." "I know," Gunnar said, "which is why we're making sure everything goes perfectly." A massive nose pressed against Jewel's back, pushing firmly. Jewel stumbled forward a step, nearly dropping her kit. "What the—" Alpha pushed again, harder this time, moving her toward the door with clear intent. His patience, already stretched thin over 2 days, had officially run out. Okay, Jewel said, picking up her pace. "I'm moving. Just let me grab the portable ultrasound." Another push, less gentle this time. Alpha made a sound deep in his chest. Not quite a growl, but close. The message was unmistakably clear. "Move faster." "Alpha," Gunnar said warningly. The dire wolf ignored him, focused entirely on hurrying Jewel along. When she paused to grab an additional piece of equipment from the shelf, Alpha literally used his massive head to push her down the corridor, his 200 pounds of muscle and desperation herding her forward like the world's most insistent sheepdog. "I'm going as fast as I can," Jewel protested, clutching her medical kit while being physically herded by an impatient dire wolf. "Tell your wolf to stop pushing me." "He's been waiting 2 days for me to figure out something was wrong," Gunnar said, following them down the corridor and struggling not to be amused by the sight. "Now that we're actually going to Beta, he's not waiting another second." Alpha huffed in agreement and gave Jewel another firm nudge with his nose, nearly making her stumble. "This is ridiculous," Jewel muttered. But she moved faster, half walking, half jogging toward the gate room with Alpha at her back, like the world's most determined escort. "I've been in active combat zones, less stressful than this." "He's very motivated," Gunnar offered. "He's very pushy," Jewel corrected, breaking into an actual jog now as Alpha increased his pressure. "And he needs to learn about personal space." Alpha's response was to push harder. They reached the gate room in record time, mostly because Alpha refused to let Jewel slow down even for a second. The massive dire wolf positioned himself right in front of the murk dusk gate, practically vibrating with anticipation, his golden eyes fixed on the inactive portal like he could will it to open through sheer force of wanting. Gunnar moved to the control panel, inputting the authorization codes. The gate shimmered to life, reality bending and folding until the corridor on the other side became visible. Murk dusk base, with Ashley standing there waiting for them, a knowing smile on her face. The moment the gate stabilized, Alpha was through it. Not running exactly, but moving with purpose and speed that left no doubt where he was going or what mattered to him in this moment. Gunnar and Jewel followed, stepping through the dimensional threshold into Murk Dusk's familiar corridors. "Welcome back, Alpha," Ashley said, falling into step beside them as Alpha led the way deeper into the base. "And Jewel, I'm guessing he didn't give you much choice about coming." "Alpha," Jewel said dryly, adjusting her grip on her medical kit, "is very insistent and has no concept of appropriate physical boundaries." They rounded a corner, and Gunnar could hear it now. Soft sounds from one of the side rooms that had been converted into a more comfortable space. Movement, breathing, the gentle sounds of a wolf at rest. Alpha pushed through the door, which wasn't actually closed, just partially ajar, and disappeared inside. Gunnar paused at the threshold, suddenly uncertain. This felt private somehow. Important in ways that had nothing to do with tactics or command or any of the skills he'd spent his life developing. He stepped inside. The room was one of their secure quarters. Comfortable. Someone had brought in additional blankets and soft bedding, creating a proper nest in the corner. And there, lying in that nest, was Beta. She was noticeably pregnant. The Timberwolf's normally lean frame had rounded, her belly visibly swollen with the pups she was carrying. Her grey and white coat looked healthy, well groomed by the pack members who'd been caring for her. She looked tired, the way mammals often do during pregnancy, but her amber eyes were bright and alert when they found Gunnar. More importantly, they were relieved when they found Alpha. Alpha was already at her side, pressing his massive head against hers, making soft sounds Gunnar had never heard from him before, gentle whines and rumbles that spoke of concern and relief and something deeper. Beta responded in kind, their greeting intimate and tender despite their size, her tail thumping weakly against the blankets. For a moment, Gunnar just stood there watching. These were his wolves, his pack. And now they were adding to their family again. "Hey, Beta," he said softly, moving closer but giving them space. "Heard you've been keeping secrets." Beta's tail thumped again, acknowledgement, but she didn't move from where Alpha had curled himself protectively around her, as if making up for 2 days of forced separation. "How is she really?" Gunnar asked, looking at Ashley. "Healthy, according to Eli," Ashley replied. "Eating well. No signs of distress. She's been calmer about it than the rest of us, probably because she's done this before, but she's definitely been watching the gate waiting for Alpha." Jewel had entered behind them, her professional assessment already beginning. "She looks good," she murmured, more to herself than anyone else. Good coat condition, eyes clear, breathing normal. Body condition appropriate for pregnancy. She looked at Gunnar. "May I approach?" Beta's gaze shifted to Jewel, assessing. Then, after a moment, and after Alpha gave what looked like a nod of approval, she huffed softly. Permission granted. Jewel moved forward slowly, her movements careful and non-threatening. "Hi, Beta," she said, speaking directly to the Timberwolf as if she could understand every word, which, given the pack bonds, she probably could. "I'm just going to do an examination to figure out how far along you are. Let me know if anything is uncomfortable." She set down her kit and began a gentle examination, checking Beta's temperature, listening to her heart rate, carefully palpating her swollen belly. Alpha watched every movement with intense focus, his golden eyes tracking Jewel's hands, ready to intervene if anything seemed wrong. "Heart rate is elevated, but within normal range for pregnancy," Jewel reported, falling into professional mode. "Temperature normal, no signs of distress or discomfort." She pressed gently against Beta's belly, feeling carefully. "I'm definitely feeling multiple pups. At least 2, possibly more. Hard to tell with certainty without imaging." "Can you tell how far along she is?" Gunnar asked. Jewel was quiet for a moment, her hands moving carefully across Beta's belly, assessing size and position. "Based on abdominal distension, fetal size I'm feeling, and general body condition, I'd estimate she's somewhere around 6 to 7 weeks along. Wolves gestate for approximately 63 days, so that would put her due in about 2 to 3 weeks." 2 to 3 weeks, Gunnar repeated, processing the timeline. "That's soon. It is, Jewel agreed. Though Beta's been through this before with Omega, so her body knows what to expect. That usually makes subsequent pregnancies easier. She pulled out her portable ultrasound equipment. I'd like to do imaging to get a better count on pups and make sure everything's developing normally. Is that all right? She directed the question at Beta, who watched the equipment with apparent curiosity. Alpha leaned in, sniffing at the ultrasound machine, then looked at Beta as if asking her opinion. Beta huffed. Agreement, or at least acceptance. Okay, Jewel said, applying gel to the probe. This is going to feel cold and probably weird, but it won't hurt. She pressed the probe gently against Beta's belly. The monitor flickered to life, showing grainy black and white images that took a moment to resolve into anything recognizable. Then Gunnar saw them. Pups. Multiple small forms curled together in Beta's womb, hearts beating in rapid rhythm. 1, 2, 3. Distinct shapes. 3 pups, Jewel confirmed, her voice carrying professional satisfaction. All appear to be developing normally based on what I can see. Good heart rates, appropriate size for gestational age. No obvious abnormalities. She moved the probe, getting different angles, checking each pup individually. This one's bigger, probably male. These 2 are similar size. She adjusted the image. Smaller, but heart rates are strong. Sometimes the smaller ones are toughest. 3 pups, Alpha and Beta's second litter, hybrids carrying both dire wolf and timber wolf bloodlines. Beta watched the monitor with what looked like interest. Her head tilted slightly as if she could understand the images. Alpha's attention was split between the screen and Beta herself, protective instinct warring with curiosity about the pups growing inside his mate. 3, Gunnar said quietly, plus Omega makes 4 total. Big family, Ashley observed from the doorway. Good thing we've got the space and resources. Jewel began packing up the ultrasound equipment. 2 to 3 weeks until birth, she said. We need to make sure we have everything ready. Clean bedding that can be easily replaced. Heat sources for the pups. They can't regulate temperature well at first. Medical supplies in case of complications. And someone monitoring when she goes into labor. That's someone being you, Gunnar said. I suppose it is, Jewel replied. Since I'm apparently the pack's expert on delivering wolf puppies now. Though I'll want Eli here too. She's got more experience with the magical aspects of bonded creatures. We'll make sure you have whatever you need, Gunnar assured her. He moved closer to Beta, crouching down so he was more at her level. Alpha watched but didn't interfere as Gunnar gently placed his hand on Beta's head. 3 pups, he said softly. You and Alpha are building quite the family. Beta's tail thumped against the blankets, and her amber eyes held something that looked like contentment despite the discomfort of late pregnancy. We'll take care of all of you, Gunnar continued. Whatever you need, whatever they need, your pack, your family, and we protect family. Beta leaned into his touch, accepting the promise, trusting in the human who had become part of her world in ways neither of them could have predicted when Alpha first chose him. Alpha pressed against Gunnar's other side, and for a moment, the 3 of them formed a unit, the last dire wolf, his timber wolf mate, and the human who had somehow become pack to them both. 2 to 3 weeks, Ashley said quietly. We'll be ready. Yeah, Gunnar agreed, straightening. We will be. He looked down at Beta, at the 3 lives growing inside her, at Alpha, who had been desperately trying to tell him for 2 days that his mate needed him. Grandpa, Ashley had called him. It was still ridiculous. They were wolves, not people. But as he stood there, feeling the weight of responsibility and protection and family, Gunnar realized it didn't matter what they were. What mattered was that they were the pack's, and they were theirs. And that bond meant something deeper than species or biology or any conventional understanding of family. Omega's going to be a big brother, Jewel observed, a hint of amusement in her professional tone. That'll be interesting. He's still pretty young himself. He'll be fine, Ashley said. The whole pack will help raise them, just like we did with Omega. Gunnar nodded, watching as Alpha settled more comfortably beside Beta, his massive body curved protectively around hers. The dire wolf finally looked settled for the first time in 2 days, the desperate agitation replaced with calm purpose now that he was where he needed to be. "I should stay here for a few hours," Jules said, already pulling out monitoring equipment. "Make sure Beta's stable, that the examination didn't stress her out. Get baseline vitals I can compare against when she goes into labour." "Actually," Gunnar said, an idea forming, "is it safe to move her? Transport her back to Earth?" Jewel paused, considering. "At this stage of pregnancy, normally I'd say avoid unnecessary stress. But Beta's healthy, strong, and she's moved around the base without issues. As long as the transport is smooth and she's not bouncing around in the back of a vehicle." She looked at Beta assessingly. The gate would actually be ideal. Instantaneous, no jostling. "Yeah, I think it would be fine." "Why?" Gunnar looked at Alpha and Beta, curled together in the makeshift nest. "Because this is a converted quarters room in a military base. Beta should be somewhere more comfortable, somewhere that's actually hers." He looked at Ashley. "Their den at the wolf den. It's quiet, secure, and it's where they actually live, where Omega was born. That's where she should have these pups." Ashley's expression shifted, understanding mixed with something that looked like relief. "You're right," she said quietly. "She's been comfortable here because we've made the best of it. But having her pups in her actual den, where she feels safe." She looked at Beta, and there was something in her eyes. The bond she shared with the Timberwolf recognizing the rightness of the decision. That's where she should be. "Jewel," Gunnar said, "arrange transport. I want Beta moved back to Earth within the hour. Make sure she's comfortable, that the trip doesn't stress her out. Set up whatever monitoring equipment you need in their den at the wolf den." "I can do that," Jewel confirmed, already making notes. "I'll want to monitor her for a few hours after the move, make sure the transport didn't cause any issues. But yeah, having her in familiar territory for the birth makes sense." Gunnar turned to Ashley. "You're going to be down Beta with her back on Earth. That's a significant gap in your security and patrol capabilities here." Ashley nodded, already thinking tactically. "It is. But it's the right call." "I'll have 3 K9 teams sent over from Earth," Gunnar said. "German shepherds, fully trained for patrol and security work. They're not bonded wolves, but they'll fill the gap until Beta is back. Should be here within 24 hours. 3 teams, Ashley said, calculating. "That'll work. We can integrate them into our patrol rotations, use them for perimeter security. It's not the same as having Beta, but it'll cover what we need." She looked at Beta, and something soft crossed her normally tactical expression. Ashley was bonded to Beta. Not the same deep connection that Alpha and Gunnar shared, but real nonetheless. Pack bonds that meant she could feel Beta's contentment, her relief at the decision to go home. "She wants to go," Ashley said quietly. "I can feel it. She's been comfortable here, but she wants to be in her den, where Omega was born, where it's home." Gunnar moved closer to Beta, crouching down again. "We're taking you home," he said gently. "You and Alpha, back to the wolf den, back to your den. That's where these pups should be born." Beta's tail thumped against the blankets, agreement, relief, gratitude. Alpha made a soft sound, pressing closer to Beta, his massive body radiating protective satisfaction. Finally, everything was being set right. His mate would be in their den. Their pups would be born where they belonged, and he wouldn't be separated from her by a gate and miles of space. 1 hour, Gunnar said, standing. "Jewel, make the arrangements. Ashley, brief your team on the K9 units coming in. I want this transition smooth." "Understood," both women replied. Gunnar took one last look at his wolves, Alpha and Beta, together finally, preparing to go home with 3 pups on the way. His pack, his family, in all the ways that mattered. 2 to 3 weeks, he said quietly. "Let's make sure everything is perfect." Chapter 7. Ghosts of a Forgotten Realm. The study in the House of Silver Mirrors felt heavy with tension. The obsidian table reflected dim evening light, its surface alive with faint pulsing glyphs mapping fragments of intelligence. Rose sat at the head, her crimson hair loosely braided, fingers drumming a precise rhythm against polished stone. The map of Umbral was little more than a void, a black wound in reality that no cartographer dared map. To most, it was legend. To Rose, it was home. When I was 10, Rose said quietly, the shadows came alive. Lyra and Lady Vess stilled completely. This was not a story Rose told lightly. My parents were dark elven nobility. Our realm existed in eternal twilight, where the sun's rays rarely penetrated the thick canopy. An eerie red glow emanated from the ground itself. Her fingers traced the edge of the map, touching the blank space where Umbral should have been. One night, the darkness consumed everything. Tendrils of inky blackness swallowed my parents, my home, my entire world. She paused, the weight of that memory settling over the room like frost. The Order of the Grey found me in the wreckage, not as saviours but as opportunists. They saw potential in me, a spark of magic that burned brighter than most. But their salvation came with a price. Rose's hand unconsciously touched her arm, where old scars remained hidden beneath her sleeve. Through ancient and forbidden rituals, they stripped me of my dark elven heritage. My onyx skin lightened. My pointed ears were rounded. My striking crimson eyes dulled to green. The transformation was excruciating, not just physically but emotionally. With every shift in my features, I felt a piece of my identity slipping away. The map pulsed, as if responding to the raw emotion in her voice. Umbral was never just a realm, Rose continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. It was a sanctuary of shadow and magic, a place where the boundaries between light and darkness meant something. When the Order took me, they didn't just change my appearance, they erased an entire civilization. Lyra's hand drifted unconsciously to her blade. The Order always takes, never gives back. Lady Vess studied Rose with newfound respect. And now the pack believes Ultranatius's child is hidden in what remains of your homeland. Rose's laugh was sharp, devoid of humour. What remains is a fortress, a Black Dawn stronghold so dangerous that even their own remnants fear entering without permission. Umbral doesn't just hide secrets, it devours them. The obsidian table flickered, glyphs dancing across its surface. Red-lined paths marked failed routes, each ending in communication loss. 4 portal routes have gone dark, Rose said, pointing. Each attempt to breach Umbral's borders ended in complete silence. No bodies, no wreckage, just nothing. Lyra stepped closer. Which means whatever is in Umbral is worth killing to protect. Or worth dying to keep hidden, Lady Vess added, her voice clinical but laced with underlying tension. The pack arrives. A soft knock interrupted their contemplation. Jiro entered, bowing slightly. The pack has arrived. Eli, Darren, Omega and Clora await in the main hall. Rose's lips curved into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Right on time. The main hall was designed to impress without overwhelming. Sleek marble floors reflected soft evening light. Enchanted sconces cast a warm glow that softened tactical gear edges. Eli was first. The elven technomancer stood slightly apart, bracer gloves already scanning the room's arcane infrastructure. Her eyes flickered with multiple overlay displays, constantly processing. Omega dominated the space, his silver-grey fur catching light, golden eyes sweeping the room with predatory intelligence. Beside him, Clora moved with the fluid grace of elven training despite her compact human frame. Darren, predictably, looked like he was trying to look like he wasn't trying to look impressive, which meant he absolutely was. Welcome to the House of Silver Mirrors, Rose said, her voice perfectly balanced between hospitality and authority. You look like you've been through hell. Clara's posture didn't change, but something in her eyes acknowledged the understatement. Multiple realms' dust clung to their gear. Coffee? Tea? Something stronger? Rose continued. You're offering alcohol after I've travelled through multiple realms. Darren's grin was sharp-edged. I thought you were trying to be hospitable. Hospitality is relative, Rose replied, her tone matching his edge. Would you prefer something that burns going down, or something that might actually help you recover? Lyra rolled her eyes from her position against the wall. Are we doing this now? Lady Vess watched the interaction with clinical detachment, someone observing a potentially volatile experiment. Eli's bracer gloves continued scanning. If you two are done flirting, some of us are actually interested in the mission. Flirting? Darren raised an eyebrow. I don't recall that being on the table. Rose's smile was razor-sharp. Not everything is a table, Darren. Omega settled on the floor with a heavy thud that suggested he was ready to ignore human nonsense and await instructions. If we could focus? Clara's interjection was calm but carried weight. Rose swept her hand across the room in a gesture of casual authority. Make yourselves comfortable. Jiro will bring refreshments. Eli, try not to disassemble anything in the first hour. Omega, there's a large cushion by the hearth. Her eyes shifted to Lyra. Keep an eye on him, she nodded toward Darren. I'd prefer my antiques remain where they are. Implying I steal? Darren's smirk was immediate. Stating a historical fact, Rose said, her tone dry. Lady Vess watched the exchange with the faintest hint of amusement. The strategic meeting. Clara, Rose said, her voice shifting to professional register. A moment in the study. It wasn't a request. It was a strategic invitation from one leader to another. The study doors closed with deliberate finality. Clara stood facing Rose, her posture betraying years of military discipline, mixed with elven grace. The staff of light hung across her back, its subtle glow a constant reminder of her unique position. Rose leaned against the obsidian table, fingers tracing the map's edge. You're not walking into Umbral. Not as a team. Not with your current configuration. Clara's eyebrow arched. Not a challenge, but an invitation to continue. Eli's technomancy is a beacon, Rose said. Her magical signatures are distinctive, unique. In Umbral, she'd be detected before activating her first scanning protocol. And the staff? Clara's voice was steady, professional. Rose smiled slightly. About as subtle as a supernova in a realm of shadows. Clara didn't bristle. She waited. Umbral doesn't just hide secrets, Rose continued, her voice dropping. It consumes them. Your standard infiltration tactics will be torn apart before you take a second step. She moved to a side table, pulling out a crystal decanter. Not an offer of hospitality, but a deliberate gesture of control. 2 glasses. No question of refusal. Shade understands shadows like breathing, Rose said, pouring. Calithra can move through darkness itself. They're Umbranites, born of twilight and secrets. Clara accepted the glass. And you? Rose's hand paused for just a moment. The crystal caught light, fragmenting it into razor-sharp reflections. I was born there, she said quietly. Before the darkness consumed everything, before the Order stripped me of my heritage, I know what it means to be a child transformed into a weapon. The room went absolutely still. That child isn't just Ultranatius's son, Rose continued, her voice hard and soft simultaneously. He's a potential victim. Another innocent about to be forged into something unrecognizable. Clara studied her, not with pity but with understanding. Gunnar! Rose's expression darkened. He's conflicted. The battle with Ultranatius was personal. Every fibre of his being wants to eliminate any potential threat. She took a slow sip, her eyes distant. He nearly died destroying the Demon King. The scars, physical and psychological, run deep. Part of him believes the child must be destroyed. a potential cancer that could grow to threaten everything. Clara waited, understanding the weight of such decisions. But he listened, Rose continued, her voice soft but firm. He understood we can't condemn a child for what they might become. Yet his hesitation isn't final. The warrior in him still sees threat. The potential for destruction is real. Gunnar will need to see the child, Clara said, not a question. Rose's smile was sharp as a blade. Exactly. The silence stretched between them. Two leaders who understood transformation intimately. Who knew what it meant to be forged in darkness, to have identity crafted by external forces. The child isn't just a target, Rose said, her voice low. He's a potential. Like I was, shaped by forces beyond his control, waiting to become something or someone. Clara studied her, seeing beyond the words. What do you see? Rose's laugh was soft, edged with something between pain and hope. A child. Not a weapon, not a threat, just potential. The map of Umbral pulsed beneath her hand, a dark heart waiting to be understood. When the darkness consumed my homeland, Rose continued, it didn't just destroy. It transformed. Every shadow became a potential threat, every memory, a weapon. Her hand moved across the map, revealing hidden pathways only someone born of the realm would know. Precise, intimate, dangerous. Our infiltration needs to be surgical. Shade understands shadows like breathing. Kalithra can literally step through darkness. And me? A dangerous smile curved her lips. I was born in twilight. Darren? Clara's question was clinical. A wild card, unpredictable, in Umbral, that could save us or destroy us. The map continued to pulse, waiting. The weight she carries. When they emerged from the study, the atmosphere in the main hall had shifted. The team had settled into cushioned seats and warm lighting during Rose and Clara's absence. Darren was mid-story about something ridiculous. Eli was scanning the room's magical architecture. Omega dozed peacefully by the hearth. Clara stood near the fireplace, her posture relaxed but her eyes missing nothing. This was her team, her backup, the ones who would wait while others ventured into a realm that might devour them. Clara stepped forward into the center of the hall. Everyone, listen. The room stilled, the casual atmosphere evaporated. Darren set down his drink. Eli's scanning gloves dimmed. Omega's ear twitched. All eyes turned to the Alpha. Rose remained where she stood, letting Clara take the floor. Clara's gaze moved across each face, steady and unflinching. We're not walking into Umbral. Not as a team. Rose was clear about that. She paused, letting that sink in. Umbral consumes what doesn't belong. Our magic, our light, our certainty. It reads as invasion to a realm made of shadow. We would be a beacon. We would be destroyed before we took a second step. Darren's usual humour was gone. He was listening with complete focus. Eli, Clara continued, your technomancy is too distinctive. You stay here. You're our lifeline, our connection, our tracking, our eyes on what we can't see. Eli's bracer gloves flickered once in acknowledgement. Darren, Clara said, and there was something almost tender in her voice despite the steel beneath it. You're unpredictable. That's your curse and your gift. Here, you're our response to the impossible. If things go wrong, you find the exits that shouldn't exist. Darren met her gaze and simply nodded. Omega, Clara said, her voice softening. You stay with me. You're my anchor, my reminder that even in shadow there's loyalty, there's pack. The dire wolf rose to his feet, massive and certain. Clara's eyes finally settled on Lyra. You are our muscle, our protection. If anything tries to follow us out of that realm, if any darkness bleeds into this world, you stand between it and everyone else. She let that weight settle. Rose is sending people in, Clara said. People born of shadow. People who understand twilight. Our job is to wait, to hold this ground, to be ready for anything. The silence in the hall was profound, full of understanding. 72 hours, Clara said, her voice taking on the weight of absolute command. We wait. We prepare for anything. She turned slightly to look at Rose. We'll need rooms, hot showers, food. My team is exhausted. Rose nodded. Of course. Jiro will take care of everything. Clara gestured to her team with the ease of someone accustomed to command. Come on. We rest first. Tomorrow we figure out the route. They dispersed to their quarters, Clara, Darren, Eli, and Omega, moving with quiet purpose. Hot water awaited them, fresh clothes, beds with actual linens instead of tactical gear on hard ground. The House of Silver Mirrors had been designed for exactly this, sanctuary for those who carried the weight of impossible decisions. And as the night settled around them, the team rested, together, under one roof, waiting for dawn. Chapter 8. The House of Night Whispers. The House of Silver Mirrors had grown quiet by the time Rose found Clara in the bathing chambers. The Alpha had finally shed the dust of multiple realms, and the weight of travel was beginning to ease from her shoulders. Clean clothes, hot water, a moment of genuine rest. These small mercies made a difference. Rose appeared in the doorway, her expression unreadable. We have an invitation. Tonight. Clara looked up, immediately alert. From whom? Someone you need to meet if you're going to understand what we're walking into. Rose's tone was matter-of-fact. The House of Night Whispers. Lucien wants to see you. Me specifically? You specifically, Rose confirmed. He's heard about the pack. Met Darren before. But you, he finds interesting. There was something in Rose's voice that suggested this wasn't casual interest. Clara rose from the bath, water cascading off her shoulders. How long do we have? An hour. We need to move at dusk. The Night Whispers don't do daylight meetings. Preparations. Lyra was waiting when Clara emerged, dressed and armed. The elf's hand rested on her blade's hilt, not hostile, but ready. You're coming, Clara asked. Rose asked me to. Lucien's people don't appreciate surprises, but they understand security. Lyra's smile was sharp. And someone needs to watch your back in a room full of information brokers. Rose appeared, dressed in travelling clothes rather than her fire-kissed armour. Deliberately non-threatening, deliberately careful. Lucien values precision, Rose said as they moved toward the courtyard. He'll assess you the moment you walk in. Don't offer information he hasn't asked for. Don't make promises. And don't pretend to be anything you're not. What does he want from us? Clara asked. That's what we're going to find out. The journey through Concordia's evening streets took them deeper into the old quarter, where buildings seemed to lean against each other like old friends sharing secrets. The crowds thinned, the lights dimmed, and eventually they reached an alley that looked like every other forgotten corner of the city. Rose approached a seemingly ordinary wall and knocked, a pattern precise and deliberate. For a moment, nothing. Then the wall shimmered, heat haze illusion falling away to reveal a doorway that hadn't been there moments before. The house. The space beyond defied the modest exterior. The House of Night Whispers existed in layers, some visible, some suggested. Candlelit corridors twisted in directions that seemed impossible. Whispers echoed from multiple directions, though no one was visible. A figure emerged from shadow, tall, elegant, with the bearing of someone who'd been listening to secrets for longer than most people had been alive. Alpha Phelan, he said, inclining his head toward Clara with perfect courtesy. I'm Lucien. Welcome to my domain. His eyes moved across her with calculated interest, assessing, measuring, finding value in small details, the way she moved, how her hand rested near her weapon, the bond she shared with the dire wolf that waited outside. You've distinguished yourself, Lucien continued, a human trained at the Elven War College, bonded to a dire wolf, alpha of the pack. These are noteworthy achievements. You know about the pack, Clara said. It wasn't a question. I know about most things that matter. Lucien gestured to a side chamber. Come, we have much to discuss, and the night is not endless. The negotiation. The chamber was lined with books that seemed to pulse with their own quiet energy. Maps covered one wall, some showing places that might not exist. A single candle provided light, though shadows seemed to hold their own illumination. Lucien settled into a chair with the ease of someone who'd conducted 1,000 such meetings. Black Dawn, he said without preamble. A cancer. A blight. They represent everything the House of Night Whispers works to eliminate. Chaos, violence, disorder. But they've proven persistent. Rose mentioned you see them as a problem, Clara said carefully. I see them as the problem, Lucien corrected. They hide in umbral. They recruit from shadow. They corrupt everything they touch. He leaned forward slightly. Your mission to retrieve the child. That serves our interests as much as yours. And you want something in return, Clara said. Lucien smiled, sharp, appreciative. Directness. I appreciate that in a leader, yes. We want something. He rose and moved to one of the maps, pointing to a location marked in silver thread. There is something in Umbral that Black Dawn has been protecting. An archive. Ancient knowledge about portals. About the realms themselves. Information that could reshape how we understand dimensional magic. He turned back to Clara. We want you to retrieve it while you're in there. Lyra's hand moved closer to her blade. You're asking us to add another objective to an already dangerous mission. I'm asking you to add an objective that aligns with your existing risks, Lucien corrected. You're going to Umbral anyway. This simply means you gather something while you're there. And if we can't? Clara asked. Then the House of Night Whispers provides minimal support. If you can, we become your strongest ally in Concordia. Information, resources, safe passage through our networks, alliance against mutual enemies. Lucien's expression was unreadable. The choice, as always, belongs to you. Clara looked at Rose. The shadow operative's face revealed nothing. What's in the archive? Clara asked. Lucien's smile widened. If we knew exactly what was valuable, we wouldn't need you to retrieve it. But we know it exists. We know Black Dawn guards it carefully, and we know it could change everything. The mystery hung in the air between them. A question without a clear answer. The understanding. As they prepared to leave, Lucien offered one final observation. You know, Alpha, most humans fear the depths, the shadows, the unknown places where their light doesn't reach. He gestured toward the doorway. But you walked into an elven war college and emerged their equal. You bonded with a creature most humans consider nightmare. You lead warriors across realms. He smiled, genuine this time, with something almost like respect. You don't fear the darkness. You walk through it like it belongs to you. He paused. That's why I want the House of Night Whispers on your side. Because whatever you're walking into in Umbral, you'll survive it, and you'll bring back what matters. And the archive? Clara asked. If it exists, you'll find it. The return journey through Concordia's night streets felt different than the arrival. Clara's mind was spinning with layers of agreement, with secrets within secrets, with the knowledge that they'd just made a deal with forces that operated in shadows far deeper than anything the pack had faced. He knows more than he told us, Clara said as they walked. Much more, Rose agreed. But Lucien only reveals what serves his purposes. We got what we needed. His support, his intelligence. What we don't know, that's the price of dealing with the House of Night Whispers. But even as she spoke, all three of them understood the truth. The game had just become considerably more complicated. They weren't just retrieving a child from a hostile realm anymore. They were racing against unknown enemies for something they couldn't fully understand. And in the darkness of Concordia's oldest streets, the House of Night Whispers watched from the shadows, satisfied that the pieces were moving exactly as intended. Chapter 9. The Mother Returns. The shadow steel bands hiss as they release, not because magic overwhelmed them, but because a hooded figure, one of the old guard, a priest who served Ultranacious before the trader came, unlocked them by hand. Silent, deliberate. "My queen," the figure whispers, bowing low. "He deceived you. The child. He accelerated." Syrian doesn't let him finish. She sits up, and the movement is wrong, jerky, like a puppet remembering how to move. Her eyes are unfocused, searching. "Show me," she rasps. The priest hesitates. First, the wolf. "Show me where my son is." The scream isn't hers alone. It's layered, like two voices occupying the same throat. The priest staggers back, terrified. Syrian's legs barely hold her as she stands, swaying. The recovery chamber seems to spin. She's still wounded, still weak from the starlight blades severing. But something burns in her, a hunger that has nothing to do with healing and everything to do with reclamation. She staggers towards Sorvin's chains. The spectre wolf is already moving, sensing her through their bond. The chains shatter under his momentum. They don't break. They dissolve, burned away by the wild magic radiating from him. His form solidifies, flesh and spectral matter merging into something more stable now that Syrian is conscious, focused, furious. He presses his muzzle against her, and through their connection she feels his rage, his hunger, his need to protect her, to destroy everyone who hurt her. "We hunt," she whispers to him, and it's almost a purr. "We hunt the traitor first." The extraction. The trader is in his chamber reviewing reports, his silver-veined hands steady. He doesn't hear them coming. By the time he looks up, Syrian is already moving. Not walking, gliding like she's not quite touching the ground. Sorvin at her side, massive and silent. "You," the trader says calmly, standing. "You should still be." Syrian's hand closes around his throat before he can finish. "You lied to me," she whispers, and her voice is wrong, fractured, doubled, like she's speaking and being spoken through simultaneously. "You said he wasn't ready. You said the blood was unstable. You said—" She doesn't finish. She pulls. Not physically. Something deeper. Her fingers dig into his chest, not tearing flesh, but reaching. The silver veins beneath his skin begin to glow, brighter and brighter. The trader screams, a sound of agony that suggests she's tearing something fundamental from his being. The essence comes out like liquid light. Ultranacious's power, the fragment he's carried for so long, begins to unwind from him. It's not a gentle process. It's violent, parasitic. The trader's body convulses, his eyes going white as the essence rips free. Syrian doesn't absorb it gradually. She devours it. The moment the essence touches her, her spine arches. Her eyes roll back. For a second, her body goes rigid, caught between her shattered self and the returning presence. And then, the voice. "My beloved." It whispers directly into her mind, not as a separate entity this time, but as part of her, woven back into her consciousness. Familiar, terrible, complete. Syrian's scream cuts off her own gasp. She's gasping and laughing and crying all at once, the tears streaming down her face as the voice speaks to her in the darkness of her own mind. "They tried to separate us, but we are eternal. We are unbreakable," Syrian finishes, her voice harmonizing with something that isn't quite her anymore. The trader hits the ground. He's still breathing barely. His skin is grey, sunken. The silver veins that once marked him with power are now just shadows under translucent skin. He's a husk, a shell. Everything that made him dangerous, every fragment of power, every resource, gone. He's conscious enough to watch her. Syrian looks down at him, her head tilting at an angle that's too sharp, too wrong. The madness in her eyes is now a living thing, amplified by the returned essence. Sorvin circles him, growling, waiting for her command. She kneels beside him, her fingers brushing his face almost tenderly. "You thought you could take my son," she whispers. "You thought you could deceive me. You thought." Ultranatius's presence surges through her, and for a moment something ancient and hungry looks through her eyes. "You thought you could reshape his destiny without consulting his mother?" She stands, leaving the trader gasping on the ground. Broken, powerless, alive only because she hasn't decided what to do with a broken toy yet. "Guard him," she tells Sorvin absently. "Don't let him die." "Not yet. I may have uses for him." She turns away, and her gait is almost normal now, almost graceful, but her hands are shaking and her lips are moving, speaking to the voice only she can hear, arguing with it, laughing with it, becoming it. The child. The nursery is guarded by two priests, young, nervous, clearly uncertain about what's happening in the fortress. When they see Syrian approaching, they try to block her path. Sorvin doesn't kill them. He just appears in front of them, spectral and terrible, and they flee shrieking. The door opens. The chamber is soft, almost gentle. Silk curtains, runes designed to soothe, a crib made of dark wood padded with cushions. And in it, a child sleeps. He's small but not small. The ritual made him 5 years old in body and memory, but his mind is still developing. His hair is dark, almost black. His features are sharp, angular, his father's features. Ultranatius's features, rendered small and innocent and sleeping. Syrian stops in the doorway. For a long moment she doesn't move, doesn't breathe. The child's chest rises and falls gently. He's dreaming, his little fingers curled into fists. There's a toy beside him, a small wooden wolf carved with surprising tenderness. Someone gave him that. Someone tried to be kind to him. Syrian steps toward the crib. Her legs shake, her hands shake, her entire body vibrates with conflicting impulses: love, possession, rage, grief, hunger, devotion. She reaches down to touch his face, but she stops an inch away, her fingers hovering in the air. Because she doesn't recognize him. This isn't her child. This is a 5-year-old boy with her lover's face and her dedication, but not her memories. Not the infant she carried, not the child she left behind with love and sacrifice and promises. He's been stolen from her, and she's missed 5 years that can never be returned. Syrian's breath comes in ragged gasps. Behind her, Sorvin has entered the chamber, pressing close, confused by her hesitation. Through their bond, he feels her breaking again, but differently this time. Not the shattering of severance, but the shattering of realization. "What did they do to you?" she whispers to the sleeping child. "What did he make you into?" Ultranatius's presence stirs in her mind, eager, hungry to see his heir, to evaluate him, to claim him. "He is beautiful, my consort. He is ours. He will be—" "Shut up," Syrian hisses, not to the voice, but through it. Her hand finally touches the boy's forehead gently, reverently, like he might break. "I need to understand what they did to him before you start planning his future." She turns to Sorvin, her eyes wild and shining. "Find the priests who performed the ritual. Find their records. I need to know everything. What they did, how they did it, what they put in him, what they took from him." Sorvin bows his head and disappears into shadow without a sound. Syrian sits on the edge of the crib watching her son sleep and begins to rock gently. The motion is almost mechanical. The smile on her face is not quite sane. "It's all right, little king," she whispers, and her voice is a duet now, hers and Ultranatius's, inseparable. "Mommy's back. Mommy and Daddy. We're all together now." The boy stirs slightly but doesn't wake. Through the window, Black Dawn's fortress begins to shake. The mages are panicking, sensing the shift in power. The cultists are scrambling. The carefully ordered hierarchy the trader built has collapsed in minutes. And in the center of it all, Syrian rocks her stolen child, her hands trembling between tenderness and violence. Behind her, through the open door, the trader still gasps for breath, a husk, barely alive, kept breathing only because a mad queen with a returned god in her mind hasn't yet decided what to do with broken things.